Week 1 Introduction video. This is where I tell you a little bit about the readings before you get to the readings in order to orient you and situate you with respect to the authors and the debates that are going on here. So you get 3 readings this week, a chapter from The Post-American World by Fareed Zakaria, a chapter from The End of Power by Moises Naim, and an article from Foreign Affairs by Yascha Mounk and Roberto Stefan Foa. Before I get to those articles and chapters, a quick word about what the overarching theme here is. First is the world is always changing. 20 years ago, a class like this would have emphasized America's geopolitical dominance, the rapid emergence of East Asian economies like South Korea, Taiwan, and others, the information technology and biotechnology revolution promising sustained economic prosperity, Europe moving towards greater integration and a common currency, Russia and Eastern Europe and the rest of the world being well on their way to consolidating democracies, and the continued political, economic, and health difficulties of the African continent, especially sub-Saharan Africa. And I know all of this because I took some version of this course at that time when I was in college. And today the picture seems very different. The trend lines, if you will, look like they're pointing in a very different direction. Democracy in Russia, Eastern Europe, and elsewhere appears to be backsliding. China and Russia appear to be challenging U.S. geopolitical dominance, or at least its ability to project power into specific regions of the world. Biotechnology has yet to really revolutionize medicine, and the economic gains that were promised to us by information technology revolutions have not been spread as widely as predicted. The European Union project seems in danger of fracturing after the financial crisis, dealing with the Eurozone, and of course the exit of the Great Britain from the European Union. One bright spot, though, is that African countries have defied all predictions and seen substantial economic growth that, I assure you, 20 years ago was not well predicted by many people. So let's talk about each of these readings in turn. First, the rise of the rest. Zakaria is a well-known Indian-American political pundit and a journalist with a Harvard PhD in government. He wasn't an academic for very long. He transitioned to journalism very quickly. In fact, he was editor-in-chief of Foreign Affairs magazine. In this piece, which is again the first chapter of a book aimed at popular but educated audiences, he's making the case for reframing our expectations about America's dominant role in the world. America since 1945 has gotten used to getting its way on most issues, and Zakaria is pointing out that the rest of the world is catching up politically, economically, and culturally to the United States. In the second chapter that you have to read for this week, Whose World Will It Be? In The End of Power by Moises Naim. Naim is a Venezuelan journalist who has worked for his own government and within international organizations. Also, editor-in-chief of Foreign Affairs magazine, as it turns out. And this, again, is a book aimed at popular but educated audiences whose central thesis is that even when states or corporations or organizations have power, that power is not as valuable as it once was. Power in our world, for Naim, is increasingly vulnerable, increasingly open to challenge, and what that means is that the geopolitical competitions for power are looking very different today than they did even 20 or 50 years ago. The chapter that you are reading for this week documents how difficult the United States finds it these days to get other countries to do its bidding. That is to say, the United States still has the largest army in the world, certainly spends more on its army than anyone else in the world, certainly can in principle fight on multiple fronts across the world at once, and is still probably the only global superpower to the extent that it's the only country that can really project its military power across the globe. But even the United States finds it difficult to get other countries to do its bidding when it wants things. And so that should tell us something about the nature of the world we're living, Naeem thinks. The final piece that you have to read for this week is not a book chapter. It's an article in Foreign Affairs magazine. And these are two young academics with PhDs from prestigious schools talking a little bit about their own research on the progress of democracy. And their article focuses on the relative decline of democracy in a number and variety of ways, both at home and across the world. Both the prestige of democracy has been severely dented by financial crises and political ineffectiveness. The economic dominance of democracies is waning, and the political clout that democracies are wielding in international organizations and across the world more generally also seems to be in decline. So there you have it. That's our introduction for week 1. I hope to do one of these for each week. Don't forget to both do the readings and then have a look at the other slides and videos for this week so that you can get a complete picture of what this week's all about.